Hi everybody, I'm David Weigelt and this is your Silver Tsunami update for Friday, September 2nd, 2011. We had a great e-brief this week. I hope you had a chance to enjoy it. We had stories and topics ranging from gaming and how that's no longer for the 18 to 34-year-old male, how social and mobile gaming has opened this up to a new set of consumers and older consumers and gamers, about a company in Texas that's developed a senior care product for the RV community, and then yet another story about how tablets are booming with boomers. But today I want to focus on two stories and then share one personal story with you. The first story is out of U.S. News and World Report, and it's actually a blog post by a gentleman by the name of Phil Moyer. And it's entitled 4 Benefits of a Surging Senior Population. And he starts out by saying, you know, as a society we've become rather obsessed with the negative, whether it's hurricanes, earthquakes, or what's going on in our nation's capital. But there's 4 reasons to be optimistic, especially for an aging population and the elderly. And the first is their voting power. He points out how older adults are among the most active voters. In fact, elders the age of 65 to 74 were the most active group out there voting. 70% of them voted, followed by the 75 plus group, for which 66% were actively voting. His second point has to do with Social Security and Medicare, and is certainly related, for which he says, based on how active our aging population is when it comes to voting, that he thinks we'll see very little come of the rhetoric around needing to drastically change Social Security and Medicare, and that whether you're liberal or conservative, that this is going to be really important for our country's elders and seniors, and not just for them, but it has an impact on all of us as a society. The next has to do with their spending power, and I think he rightly addresses that there's this feeling that as the boomers start to turn 65, that they're going to start to pull their money out of the markets, and the only thing they're going to buy is going to be toothpaste, and it's all downhill from there. And he talks about how the new generation that's becoming seniors, based on the quality of life that they're used to and just their experience growing up, that it's going to be a very different situation in terms of how they behave as consumers as seniors. And lastly, one that I really liked and that resonated with me has to do with their cultural power. We talk about Immersion Active all the time. We buy into this idea that we first heard from David Wolf, and that is, for the first time as a country, we have more adults over the age of 40 than under. And that doesn't just impact older adults, it impacts the society as a whole. And what Phil says here is that by 2030, when you're walking down the street and 20% of the population is over 65, he says our attitudes are really going to have changed when it comes to aging and the elderly, and that it's going to be for the positive, for the good. The second story I have today is that I want to highlight is from the Associated Press, and it's about grandparents playing a bigger role in child rearing. We all know it as marketers, or whoever you are out there listening to this today, you certainly understand the power that grandparents have as consumers. And this article says, hey, America is becoming a granny state, but this isn't the granny of old. They are less frail, they are more involved. In fact, 1 out of 4 adults in this country is now a grandparent. That's over 60 million adults in our country. But that their role has changed as a result of the recession. And while unemployment with adults 25 to 34 has doubled, it's stayed relatively low for the 50-plus crowd. And we know that that's where the discretionary income is, and that while they historically have spent billions on toys and games and food for their grandchildren, that they are playing a much bigger role in their life as a whole, and that includes daycare and medical expenses. So definitely an article worth checking out. And finally, I just wanted to thank everybody for their support. As many of you know, this time last week I head down to Florida to have a difficult conversation with my grandmother, who's got some signs of early onset dementia. You know, I said there was opportunity there, and the awesome blessing that I had with my grandmother last week was an opportunity that only a grandchild and a grandparent have, and that's just to kind of be. And we had those moments together, and it was fantastic. But she is wrestling with memory loss, and I didn't achieve what I set out to do, which was to be able to better provide care for her and understand what her wishes are going forward, as maybe she won't be able to think for herself so clearly. And so we made some small progress, but not what I was hoping for. And every morning as I got up, I went to a local park for a quick run, and I walked down her street of cookie cutter Florida style houses, and something struck me that I heard from Ken Dykewald several years ago, and that was in the very near future, 7 or 8 out of 10 adults over the age of 70 would wrestle with some form of dementia. And I thought about that, and I thought about my grandmother living alone in this house, for which outwardly everything appears normal, but inwardly there's just a lot of need for support there. And then when you think about the boomers who are now turning 65 at a rate of 10,000 a day, that's just a huge impact it's going to have on our society, and there's a lot of needs there. But I want to thank you so much for the support. I literally had hundreds of emails, which was a little overwhelming, to be honest, when I was down there, but support, including the local Alzheimer's Association asking if they can help. Some of you that have developed some products, offering to overnight those products at no cost if it would be of assistance. A local professional historian offering to come and document my grandmother's story before things progressed any further. And of course, just so many of you that offered your positive thoughts and your prayers, and I appreciate that. And so one of the things that I've thought about a lot is, and given some serious consideration, is sharing with you a recording I made of the conversation that I had with my grandmother. And I felt like it was important to record that conversation for several reasons, for which she understood. And she was very open to the conversation, but it is very personal. She talks about money and death, and how she wants to be cared for, and the fact that she is wrestling with memory loss and the impact that that's having. So I have placed that video on my personal Vimeo site, and for those of you that are Silver Tsunami subscribers, I'm going to provide in the email this week a password that will give you access to that conversation for a limited time. And I share that with you because this whole Silver Tsunami thing is simply about having the important conversations that need to be had, so that we can understand the opportunities, the risks, and the rewards of an aging society. So thank you again. I hope everybody has a great weekend, a great holiday weekend. Please feel free to check out the links to all of this week's stories in this update at facebook.com/silvertsunami. And remember, age does equal opportunity.